everyone. Welcome to the Diversity Show. My name is Louise Bergerson, and I live in Amagansett. I've lived here full-time since 2014. In fact, 2014 was the year that I joined the Anti-Bias Task Force, and it was also the year that I started, along with my Ecuadorian friend Adriana Leon, an English program for the Latino adults in our community. I would love to turn this interview over to Andrew Visconti. Andrew Visconti over here and Leslie Schnur over here are two members of the board now of Ruta 27, Route 27. That's the name of the English program at the moment, and Andrew's great at interviewing because he's a professional journalist, so we are going to use that expertise.
Thank you, Louise. It's interesting because all of us, we started volunteering for Ruta 27, but we have different backgrounds. Leslie in publishing, you used to be a teacher. I used to be a journalist. So here I am wearing two hats. I help out being a volunteer on Ruta 27, Ruta 27, but I am also a journalist. So tell us, what is the activity of Ruta 27? What do we do?
Our main focus is to bring English to the Latino adult community in our area. So be Springs, anywhere from Montauk to Hampton Bays. We draw students from all that area. And the program has grown tremendously, and that's part of the excitement of the moment. So, yes.
Ironically, we are at the studios, at the LTV studios, and we are next door to where it all began, right?
Yes. There's a church next door. At the time, it was called the Living Waters Church. Has a slightly different name now, but the pastor there invited Adriana and I to use the classrooms that they had there in their space, and those classrooms were wonderful in the beginning for the 55 students that we had at the beginning. We had 2 classes, and oh, well, we can do this. We've never done it before, but we can do it. And we did. And it was so successful that by the next year we were up to 80 students. And every year we've grown, and that has made it very, very exciting. So we've definitely outgrown the local church right next door. In fact, we've outgrown St. Luke's, which is where we've been recently. They hosted us for the last 4 or 5 years. And now we're moving to East Hampton High School because we need even more space. So
we need more space, but especially the Latino community is really large out here, and there is a great need for classes. Leslie, how did you get involved, and what has been your experience dealing with Latino students?
When we moved out here, my husband and I moved out here full time in 2018, and I wanted to get involved doing some volunteer work and involved with the community, and the last thing I wanted to do was be on a committee or any kind of work like that. I had been on committees my whole career. So I went to, and I was concerned about the Latino community, and I went to a meeting about DACA in Sag Harbor at a church, and I met Louise there. And of course, she's very persuasive and lovely, and so I joined the school, and I learned that first year under Louise, and the next year, and it was at the church at that time, at this church near here, and then we moved to the other. So I've been since we were here, and I think my desire to be involved with the Latino community and these wonderful students is because I just felt like these are the people who do my nails, who clean my house, who do our lawns, who really work with us and work on our behalf, and yet they have trouble communicating, and language is empowering. So I really wanted to, this was perfect for me, and also to work one-on-one with them.
Absolutely. Louise, do we ask any questions as to whether they are documented, undocumented?
It's not material.
But is there ever a trepidation for them to approach an organization, a white organization.
I'm sure there is trepidation, but hopefully, because of the welcoming and warm atmosphere that we try and present, I hope that we lessen that. So it's a non-issue as far as we are concerned.
My experience in my own classroom is that it's really important to gain their trust.
Yes.
They already trust us just because they made the decision to join Ruta 27. But then once in the classroom, at first they're a little tentative, and it's really a matter of making them feel safe.
Yes. Yeah, and when they do feel safe, they will come to you with questions about, oh, Miss Louise, can you recommend, in Spanish, of course, can you recommend a possible doctor? I'll say, well, I can make a few suggestions, but it would probably be better if you speak to, and I'll hopefully lead them to somebody who can maybe help them find someone appropriate for what they are looking for.
Leslie, when you mention to friends, people you know, that you are a volunteer with Ruta 27, what is the reaction of people, and what do you feel are perhaps some of the misconceptions that people might have about the Latino community out here?
Most people respond by saying, well, that's how exciting. You know, it's because I'm excited, I think. And so they get they understand that it's important work and it's fun. And I think, misconceptions about the community. I think only that these people are very serious and passionate. They had to work so hard to get here. And we hear a lot about their travels and how the hardship that they went through to get to this country. And so they're serious about learning. They're serious about wanting to be American citizens and part of the community. And I think if there's any misconception, it's that we don't take them seriously as community members, as part of our community, an important part. And so, so I think that's the most important thing, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say that at first they seem very shy because they're so nervous and so afraid, and it takes a number of weeks before I can get that smile of and somebody to go and to breathe a little bit more calmly. They're so afraid to speak. I have basic level students, so they are terrified to speak, and the first time they actually can say hello, just hello, my name is, and it comes out sort of correctly, they're so amazed, and it's just such a warm feeling for me that it's so wonderful for them to know that they can do this.
Absolutely. Are they from one particular part of Central or South America? What is sort of the composition, and what is the presence of Latinos in this area?
I would say at the moment we have a large number of Ecuadorian students in our community, but not necessarily, because there are Colombians, Costa Ricans, Mexicans, other Central American countries, Venezuela, once in a while even someone from Spain, from one of the islands like the Dominican Republic. So those places are not, don't have as many students, but I think it's just like what it was like for my grandparents, which was they came here from the Poland, Russia area, and they went to live in an area where all their relatives and friends were, and their other relatives and friends came from the same town and moved to the same community and all lived in the Bronx together. So I think it's pretty much the same. They coming to a place where they know someone, and so they're coming from the same community.
In the groups that I have taught, I have noticed that the vast majority are from Ecuador. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because within Ecuador there are different regions. Yes. And they say, oh, you're from that region, I'm from that region.
Yes.
And there's, I believe, 3 distinct Ecuadorian regions. Yes. Then I would say the second largest group is Colombian.
Yes. Yeah.
and then a mix of Mexican, of Dominican. I had a Costa Rican student, a Honduran student.
Yeah.
But really, Ecuadorian is
Yes,
the
yeah.
strongest presence. Leslie, have students shared stories with you about living here? Maybe the challenges of living here?
Yes. And first of all, so many of them talk about how much they miss their family. And some haven't seen their family in 5 years who are back in Ecuador or Colombia. And so there's that they have to contend with. Missing family, loneliness, even if they're here with a friend or a spouse. But the very difficult stories are ones where they are living in terrible living conditions, and which is heartbreaking and outrageous, I feel, for this area. I had a young woman with a baby living in a trailer that was costing her so much money, that had no heat in the winter and no air conditioning in the summer. And eventually she moved to the Midwest where her father is. So it just, how do you live in those conditions and having to pay so much rent? So we do hear, because I'm with I'm older, but with a group that is more fluent, knows some English, so they're able to talk about their, some of their struggles. Of course, when the price of gas went up, they were carpooling, they were riding bikes. I mean, it really affects their lives and how they get to school and how they get to work, because every penny counts.
You mentioned the big challenge with housing.
Yes.
Huge problem out here for everyone, but also for the Latino community. I shared with both of you what I felt was a very heartwarming story a few days ago when early in the morning I went out for a walk. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and I walked just 5 minutes away from my house, and at one point I saw a guy standing in the driveway. I recognized him. He was one of my former students. And he called my name and said, "Hi, Andrew." And I approached him and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I live here." And it came back to my mind the fact that he told me that he used to have a house with his wife and 2 daughters. The landlord jacked up the price. They had to leave. They couldn't afford it. They ended up at Cozy Cabins in Waynescott, and there was very expensive, and they had a 1-bedroom,
Right.
4 people, 1 bedroom. They stayed for a while, and eventually he was able to buy that house where I saw him.
Unbelievable.
When I heard that story,
Definitely.
I said,
So-
yes, there is still hope that some of them really can make
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Louise, did you have any particular conversation with your students that comes to mind?
Their conversation with them is a little bit more limited because they are all basic students, so they are happy to be able to say anything, but once in a while I'll pick up something from what they're saying between one student and another, or because of a question they'll ask me, and it'll be in Spanish, and hopefully I'll understand what they're asking me. So their biggest problems seem to be about housing, because that has come up a number of times where they will send me a message in Spanish basically saying, "Miss Louise, do you happen to know of anybody who has a room available?" And of course I rarely know anything like that, but that definitely seems to be their biggest challenge, housing, so that they don't have to be driving 2 hours to get to work in the morning, and that would be crazy. A lot of students would be driving most of the day because they have to come from Hampton Bays or someplace like that, and that really is crazy. But what I do like is that the program is local, so that so many of the students who live in the area can actually get to it without having to drive. instead of going all the way to Suffolk Community College or Riverhead or some other place that's a big, long distance, they are so happy that they can come directly from work or come home from work, come here, come to the program and not have to drive a lot of hours.
Right.
So,
In fact, I would like to add that one of the reasons the program that you founded in 2014 has been so successful is not only because you're a force of nature, but also because classes are offered in the evening, 7 to 9 p.m. For the local Latino community, it is impossible to go to class in the middle of the afternoon. They work hard. Local libraries offer language classes, but with very few takers because libraries close. By
Right.
7 o'clock, they're closed.
Right.
So really, the vision that Louise and Adriana had was to offer evening
right.
classes.
And that was all Adriana's doing because she is from the community. And she was so instrumental in helping the rest of us learn what works well for her community. And one is that we are local, one is that we're warm and welcoming. So, she has always been the
The connect.
voice for us to speak for her community, and it's been wonderful because she really has helped us understand how best to reach
Yeah.
the students. So
I find fascinating how they come, they're clean, they are all freshly showered, they come to class, and for them it's an important appointment.
Which is-
They don't come straight from work. There's a great respect for the program that we're offering them.
respect for teachers in general. They call us, usually all of us, teacher.
Teacher.
They don't call us our names. I can finally get them to say Miss Louise, maybe later on in the year. But if they meet me outside anywhere, it's teacher or licenza, which is sort of another honorific, or profe, meaning professor.
Right.
So,
Uh-huh.
and they are very, very respectful of all of us and of each other. Which is, I think, they're so supportive of each other. They'll be sitting around at a table working on something, and they're all helping each other, and it's just wonderful.
Leslie, what do you feel you've learned about yourself, about the Latino community? What have you learned from this experience of
So much.
interacting with the local Latinos?
So much. I can't even, where do I start? What have I learned? First of all, I've learned to listen better to people. I feel like they surprise me all the time, and that the more I listen and just shut up for a minute, that you learn so much about how differently people think from me, so that's one thing, is I listen more. And also I tend to not be a very shy person, but I have to not be intimidated, it can be intimidating because I don't speak much Spanish, to be in front of a class of Spanish speakers, but I tell them that their English is better than my Spanish, so they can relax, and I can relax, and I make mistakes, and they laugh, and we enjoy together. So I think learning to listen, it's okay to make mistakes, learning about another culture. I remember one example, it was about Halloween. We always talk in our classes about any holidays that are coming up and what are they doing, and I learned so much that for many of my students that year, and it may be true in your classes, I don't know, that they don't like Halloween. It's not important, and in fact, some of them were afraid of Halloween, and it just wasn't part of their culture to do what we do, to go around and trick or treat. And would they allow their kids to trick or treat? It was very much a big conversation in our class. So just learning so much about differences. and how we're not so different.
Louise, what do you feel have been your experience in dealing with the Latino community? What have you learned?
How much they have to struggle for every inch of what they do, whether it's to make enough money to feed their family, to have a job that's a full year job where they're not just working like crazy in the summer and then nothing happening in the winter, to realize that there are challenges that if you're English speaking you just don't have. Like getting a driver's license is such a big challenge because, well, they give you a booklet and it's in Spanish, but you don't really understand the rules of the road, and you know, like, well, how can I really understand that better? And all of those are just some of the little things. Childcare,
Talking to a doctor.
right,
You know,
or a doctor or a lawyer or any other
or
professional.
a,
Yes,
or
yeah.
a boss for a raise or different
Yes.
hours.
Yes. Yeah, so
Everything.
helping them towards the end of the year, once their English is getting a little bit more proficient, helping them create conversations. Well, what would you say to your boss if, let's make believe and create a conversation, and then between us, they'll say it a little in Spanish, I'll explain it in English, then we'll create the English conversation that they're going to have with their boss because they need to take a day off because they have to take their wife to the doctor. So it's a learning progression, but it's a learning progression for me too, because I don't know these challenges that they have, and some of the things that they find challenging. It was like, oh, okay, well, let's see how we can deal with that, and that's great.
Like Leslie, I feel I've learned so much from these 4 years of volunteering for Ruta 27. But one thing I have learned from them is that they never complain. They always seem to be in a good mood, appreciative for what they have, and not complaining for what they don't have. And a lot of us, especially in this area, we seem to not be happy about so many things, and we complain about the traffic, and we complain about the people, and we complain about the weather. We're always complaining about something.
Right.
And with them, it's hard to get a negative story. I had one student, young lady, I would say she's probably not even 30. She came from Ecuador by herself.
Yeah.
She told me how much she paid to arrive in the United States, and she was arrested. She was in a detention center for 2.5 months when she arrived in the United States. And she said, I was there for Christmas by myself. I was there for New Year's by myself. I was there on my birthday by myself. And she said she was in a cell that had a window,
Wow.
but the window had been boarded up. So she said she spent 2.5 months crying. And yet she was sharing this story with such sense of lightness because she's here.
I think,
And-
yes, I feel that too, that every student we've had is so grateful, and they love this country. You know, they love being here, even with the hardships, even with how difficult it is. Do they want to go home? No. They want to make lives here. They want to raise their children here. So I agree, very positive.
One of the stories that will always stay with me was the time that I told them how it's appropriate to act if they get pulled over by the police. It was fascinating. They were taking notes. When I said, first of all, pull over, open the window, and keep your hands on the wheel. I said, really? I said, absolutely. The officer wants to see your hands. When the officer approaches the car, call them officer. Say, good evening, officer. Acknowledge who they are. And again, they were taking notes, and for me, it was so fascinating. And we went through other tips, and they were saying, wow, this is what we really need to learn. This is what we don't know. Louise, since you teach basic level, what are the challenges of getting them to learn English?
A whole other set of challenges. We don't have those conversations. They don't happen. I guess to get them brave enough to be able to actually speak. They might be able to understand spoken English, but to speak it, and I can relate so much because I've been studying Spanish for the last 7 years, and I have to tell you that when somebody says to me, well, say that in Spanish, Louise, I go, and so I know their absolute feeling. But with the remaining time, I would like to make sure to include what it is like to be a volunteer and to volunteer for this, and how heartwarming it is for all of us that have committed to this and committed to it. You would think, oh, well, they're going to this person committed, they're going to be bored, they'll be gone. And no, all of my teachers have been here, our teachers have been here for ages, and they're wonderful, and they just keep showing up, and the students keep rolling through the program, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And you don't have to speak Spanish to be a teacher. You come into a classroom. We have a number of people who volunteered recently. They're going to be teacher trainees, and that'll go on for a while, and before you know it, they'll be able to handle a classroom on their own, because you just have to roll with it. You just have to figure out what's going on, and then you can do it. You can do it, and it'll be comfortable and fun and wonderful and rewarding. And
Agree, all those things.
And it's interesting, a lot of people feel intimidated by approaching a program like this because I don't speak Spanish, I can't do it. It's okay. I mean, obviously it helps if one speaks a little bit of Spanish, it helps, but it's totally doable.
And also,
Totally doable.
and we also are supportive of the teachers who don't speak Spanish. We'll put someone as an assistant teacher in the room with them who does. Or
Right.
we have these wonderful high school community service students who are bilingual, and they come into class and they help.
Yes.
So a student has a
me.
question, you have a question, they ask the community service student, the student explains it to you, and then you go, oh yes, of course I can help. So
Louise, how do people find out more about Ruta
Okay.
27?
they can go on the website, Ruta, RUTA 27, ruta27.org, route27.org, and find out more about the program. The website is in English, it's in Spanish. We have an Instagram account, we have a Facebook account, so there are many ways, or they can just contact any of us and we will tell them everything they maybe want to know.
And could there be too many volunteers?
Oh, there could be. At this point, we have an embarrassment of riches, but we are going to find ways to use all of them. So we're very excited about that. Okay, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining in behalf of the Anti-Bias Task Force of Leslie Schnur, Andrew Viscanti, and myself, Louise Bergerson. Have a good evening.